Welcome in, everyone. We're doing a deep dive today into self-improvement.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we're taking kind of a unique approach with it, though.
Okay.
So we've got all this analysis of someone's video blog.
Okay.
Like weeks and weeks of it. And it's so much more than you usually see. You know, it's not just the surface like and subscribe stuff. It's like really detailed observations.
I see, yeah.
And the kind of stuff that can really like get to the core on how someone grows and changes.
So it's like we're going behind the scenes of someone's self-improvement journey.
Exactly.
Trying to understand like the deeper patterns and motivations.
Yes. And it's not just about what he says in the vlogs.
Right.
It's about what those words reveal, you know?
Yeah.
About like his mindset, his struggles, how he's changing.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's where you come in.
Oh.
Like you're the expert at spotting those subtle cues.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm a mind reader or anything, but I do enjoy trying to figure out what makes people tick.
Okay, so let's get everyone up to speed.
Sure.
Our vlogger is a young guy about to turn 29, living in Amsterdam.
Okay.
And he is all about health, both physical and mental. You can tell he's really putting in the effort to build good habits.
I see.
From like the early vlogs, I was struck by how much he was focusing on routine, exercise, yoga, even tracking his calories.
Interesting.
But here's where the analysis gets really interesting.
Yeah.
He seems super uncomfortable filming with a tripod.
Oh.
And they actually frame this as a good thing for viewers.
Oh, that's interesting.
Why would that resonate, do you think?
You know, it makes me think about how often we all feel awkward.
Yeah.
Especially when we're trying something new. I mean, that self-consciousness is just part of being human, right?
Yeah, totally.
And there's actually research on this.
Oh, wow.
People find vulnerability way more compelling than like some perfect image.
Really?
It's true. When we see someone embrace those imperfections, it makes them more relatable, more human.
Like it gives us permission to be imperfect too.
Exactly. It's like, hey, this guy's working on himself and he's not afraid to show the messy parts.
Right.
It makes the whole self-improvement thing seem a lot less intimidating.
Yeah, because sometimes it feels like everyone else has it all figured out.
Right, but they don't. Self-improvement is a journey, not a destination.
I like that.
And that journey, it's full of awkward moments, setbacks, all those learning experiences.
So by showing that discomfort, our vlogger is actually like modeling resilience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's showing that it's okay to feel uncomfortable, to step outside your comfort zone.
And to keep going even when it feels awkward.
Yes. And that's such a powerful message for anyone struggling with self-doubt.
Or fear of failure.
Exactly.
Okay, let's jump ahead a bit.
Okay.
The vlogger starts talking about turning 29 and how his energy levels have changed. And the analysis suggests he lean into this.
Interesting.
Like use it to connect with viewers going through similar stuff.
Oh, I see.
What are your thoughts on this whole idea of age impacting personal growth?
Well, it's fascinating, right? Because our culture often puts youth on a pedestal.
Yeah.
It's all about boundless energy and all that.
Yeah.
But as we get older, our energy naturally shifts.
That's true.
The key is to recognize these changes and adapt our approach to self-improvement.
So instead of fighting those changes, work with them.
Exactly. Instead of beating yourself up for not having the stamina of a 20-year-old.
Right.
You might focus on finding activities that give you sustainable energy now.
I like that.
Yeah, and that you actually enjoy.
It's like we're giving ourselves permission to redefine what success looks like.
I love that. You're getting it. It's about self-acceptance and recognizing that our growth evolves over time.
Okay, here's another juicy tidbit from the analysis.
Okay.
They really get into his relationship with his partner.
Oh, interesting.
They talk about the stability in love, but also potential challenges.
I see.
What role do you think relationships play in someone's self-improvement journey?
You know, relationships can be like a crucible for growth.
How so?
They offer amazing support, but they also challenge us to grow in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
The dynamics of a relationship, especially a long-term one, can really bring our own patterns and insecurities to the surface.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that.
Right.
It's like your partner becomes a mirror, reflecting back things you might not even see in yourself.
Exactly. And those reflections, they can be enlightening, but also uncomfortable.
Yeah, for sure.
But that discomfort, that's where the growth happens.
So it's not always about finding someone who completes you, but rather someone who helps you become more complete on your own.
Beautifully put. It's about mutual growth, supporting each other's evolution and navigating all the inevitable challenges.
Okay, so we've touched on his discomfort with filming, his thoughts on age, and how relationships play a part in his journey.
Yeah.
What I found really interesting was this tension the analysis pointed out between his desire for control and his need to embrace the unknown.
Interesting.
We see it in how he talks about his routines, his self-criticism, even his love of like adrenaline activities.
Oh, I see.
It's like he's constantly seeking that balance between pushing himself and letting go.
You've hit on one of the core themes here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's dance between control and surrender, something we all grapple with in our own self-improvement.
Yeah, it's like on one hand, we want structure, goals, we want to take charge.
Oh, exactly.
But then real growth often requires letting go of that need to control.
Yes. Embracing uncertainty, trusting the process.
It's a paradox.
It is. Yeah. There's a paradox at the heart of personal growth.
And we see this playing out in so many areas of his life.
Yeah.
He's meticulous about his routine, yet he craves that thrill of the unknown. He pushes himself, but then struggles with really intense self-criticism.
It's like those two impulses are revealing something deeper. It's not about perfect balance, but learning to dance between those two poles.
Finding a rhythm that works.
That's a great way to put it.
So it's not just about taking charge or just letting go. It's finding that sweet spot where we're doing both.
Exactly. Where we're both in control and open to being surprised by the journey.
Right.
And that takes practice. It's about flexibility, resilience, self-awareness.
To navigate those ever-changing dynamics.
Exactly.
Okay, we've looked at some specific points, but the analysis also highlights these overarching patterns.
Okay.
In his thinking and behavior. Like he's constantly evaluating himself.
Yeah.
Driven by this need for energy and productivity. But then there's that severe self-criticism.
Right.
The struggle with shame and fear of failing.
It's almost like he's operating on two different tracks.
Interesting.
There's the achiever track where he's ambitious, always pushing for the next goal.
Yeah.
But then there's this inner critic track.
Right.
Where he's constantly doubting himself, fearing he's not good enough.
And those two tracks seem to be in constant tension.
Exactly. It's that inner battle between wanting to grow and being afraid to not measure up.
And that's where self-compassion comes in, right?
Yes. It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress, that setbacks are going to happen, and that real growth comes from embracing our imperfections.
It's so easy to get caught up in the shoulds of self-improvement.
I know. And to feel like we're always falling short.
Exactly.
But what if we approached it all with a little more kindness, a little more grace?
So it's not about reaching some perfect version of ourselves.
Right.
But becoming more comfortable with who we are right now.
Yes. Embracing the good, the bad, the messy, all of it.
Yeah.
Recognizing that even in those tough moments, we're still worthy of love and acceptance.
Okay, so we've laid some groundwork here.
We have.
We've explored the vlogger's background, his routines, his relationship, that whole tension between control and surrender.
Yeah.
What I'm really curious about is how these patterns show up in his communication.
Oh, interesting.
His work life, and ultimately why he decided to share this all publicly.
Right, but we'll have to save that for next time.
I know.
It's going to be good.
I can't wait.
So his communication style, it's really like a window into that internal struggle, you know?
The one between control and vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about that last time.
Right. And what's fascinating is how his communication evolves.
Oh, interesting.
As he grows personally.
Okay.
Like early on, he's jumping between topics. There's this kind of restless energy in how he speaks.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
But as the weeks go by, there's a shift.
What kind of shift?
Towards more clarity, more intentionality.
Like he's becoming more aware of how he's coming across.
Exactly. Not just about what he's saying, but how he's saying it.
The analysis even pointed out times where he seems to catch himself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like pausing to gather his thoughts before going on.
That self-awareness is huge for communication.
It is, isn't it?
It's not about being a perfect speaker overnight. It's about recognizing our habits and making conscious choices.
About how we express ourselves.
Exactly. And speaking of expression.
Yeah.
The analysis also looks at his use of language.
Oh, interesting.
He's often quite poetic, using metaphors and imagery.
Yeah, he does do that.
But sometimes those metaphors, they get a little abstract.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Even confusing at times.
It made me wonder, is that helping or hurting his growth?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
On one hand, that poetic language It shows his creativity, his unique perspective.
Right.
But if the message isn't landing, it can lead to misunderstandings.
Especially in relationships.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's exactly what the analysis highlights.
Really?
Yeah. There are a few times where his abstract communication creates tension with his partner.
Oh, that's tough.
It seems like she wants more directness.
More clarity.
Yeah, I can see how that would be frustrating.
It's a classic communication clash.
Is it?
We all have different styles, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Some people are more direct, others are more nuanced.
Right.
And the key, especially in relationships,
Yeah.
is bridging that gap.
How do you do that?
It's about recognizing that what's clear to us might not be clear to someone else.
So how do we bridge that gap, like practically?
Well, one super powerful technique is called active listening.
Active listening, okay.
It's about really hearing the other person, acknowledging their perspective before jumping in with our own.
So it's not about getting my point across.
Right. It's about truly understanding you.
And that can be hard.
It can, but it's so important for building stronger relationships.
It takes practice.
It does, but the rewards are worth it.
Okay, back to our vlogger.
Okay.
It seems like he's starting to see the need for more directness.
Oh, good.
Especially with his partner. The analysis points out that he's making an effort
to be more straightforward.
Yeah, when it really matters.
That's real growth, both personally and in his relationship.
He's realizing that communication isn't just about expressing yourself.
It's about understanding the other person.
And adapting your style.
Exactly.
It's like he's learning to speak different languages.
That's a great way to think about it. We all have different communication languages.
It's about being adaptable.
Choosing the right approach for the situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talk about how his need for control shows up in his routines and his self-criticism.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's in his communication too.
Oh, how so?
The analysis mentions this tendency to over-explain things.
Oh, interesting.
Almost like he's trying to control every little nuance.
To make sure there's no misunderstanding.
Yeah, like eliminate any room for interpretation.
But communication is a two-way street, right?
It is. It's a dance between speaking and listening.
Expressing and receiving.
And sometimes the most powerful moments, they happen in those spaces between the words.
It's like by over-explaining, he might be stifling things.
Stifling what?
That flow, that genuine connection.
Right. That can happen when we're more vulnerable.
Exactly.
True connection requires vulnerability. The willingness to let go of the reins a little bit.
To allow for silence, for unspoken understanding.
It's about trust.
Trusting that the other person can meet you in that space.
Exactly.
And it seems like he's starting to get that.
Oh, good.
The analysis says in later vlogs, he embraces those moments of silence.
He's allowing for pauses.
Yeah, he even talks about how important listening is.
That's huge. It suggests he's shifting from control to receptivity.
Becoming more curious about the other person's experience.
Exactly.
He's realizing that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all.
Sometimes it's about just holding space.
Yeah.
Listening with your full presence.
And letting the conversation unfold naturally.
Okay, we've talked about verbal communication.
What about nonverbal cues?
No, those are so important.
The analysis talks about his body language, facial expressions.
Right, they can be so revealing.
I know, I fidget when I'm nervous. Does he do that too?
Our nonverbal signals often convey what our words can't.
Especially with emotions.
Exactly, like fidgeting, avoiding eye contact. Even subtle shifts in posture.
Can all point to underlying anxiety or discomfort?
In one vlog, he talks about feeling nervous before a social event. And the analysis points out how his body reflects that.
He was fidgeting.
Fidgeting, not making eye contact, shoulders hunched.
But then as the evening goes on, you see a shift.
Oh, how so?
He relaxes, engages more, and his body language reflects that.
It's a perfect example of how our internal state shows up physically.
And the other way around, right?
What do you mean?
Like paying attention to our body language can help us regulate our emotions.
Absolutely. It's a feedback loop.
If I'm feeling anxious,
yeah,
I can adjust my posture, make eye contact, smile, and that can actually help me feel more confident.
It's powerful. It shows how connected our mind and body really are.
Okay, with all this talk about communication, what's the takeaway for our listener? Why should they care about this?
Communication is the foundation of all our relationships, personal and professional.
It's how we connect, resolve conflict, express needs, build intimacy.
Exactly. And by watching someone else's journey, their strengths and weaknesses,
We can learn about our own patterns.
It's like holding up a mirror to our own habits.
How we interact with the world.
It's an invitation to self-reflect and grow.
To become better communicators in all parts of our lives.
I love that.
Okay, so we've looked at his relationships and how he communicates. Now I want to get into his work life.
Okay.
The analysis suggests his job is a big source of stress.
Oh, no.
And frustration for him. It makes me wonder if his work is somehow mirroring his internal struggles.
You might be onto something there.
Really?
His work environment seems to reflect those same patterns.
Of overcommitment, pushing himself too hard.
Yeah, even at the cost of his well-being.
It's like he's recreating those same dynamics.
But in a different area of his life.
He talks about feeling overwhelmed, constantly battling deadlines and demanding clients.
I see.
And it seems to be affecting him mentally and emotionally.
This goes back to his need for control.
How so?
Well, in a chaotic workplace, it's natural to want order.
Right.
To try and manage all those demands.
Yeah.
But it can lead to overfunctioning.
Taking on too much.
Exactly. And ultimately it backfires.
There's a point in the analysis where he mentions a negative coworker.
Oh, no.
Someone who seems to drain his energy and make him anxious.
That's tough.
It made me think, is his need for control making him more susceptible to that negativity?
That's a great insight.
Really?
Our need for control can make us sensitive to negativity.
Why is that?
It's like we're trying to control everything, including other people's behavior.
Right.
And when that fails...
It creates more stress.
Exactly.
So he's realizing this coworker is impacting him, but he also can't control how she acts.
That's a hard lesson.
It is.
But it's also freeing.
How so?
It's about shifting from trying to control the external world to focusing on what we can control.
Our reactions.
Our boundaries.
So instead of getting sucked into the negativity, he needs to find ways to protect his energy.
To disengage from those conversations.
Exactly.
And focus on the ones that uplift him.
It's a reminder that we have agency.
Even in tough workplaces.
We can choose how we respond.
How we protect ourselves.
And create a more positive space for ourselves.
This all ties back to his self-improvement journey.
It does, doesn't it?
It's not about being immune to stress or negativity.
Right.
It's about developing tools to navigate those things.
To stay well even when things are tough.
Finding that sweet spot between striving for excellence at work and honoring our own needs and limits.
That's not always easy.
It isn't. It takes self-reflection, adjustments.
And letting go of that idea that we have to do it all perfectly.
Exactly.
So we see this young man navigating work, relationships, self-discovery.
He's always pushing for growth.
But also learning to embrace his imperfections.
Finding that balance.
Between pushing himself and being kind to himself.
And what's amazing is that he's doing this all publicly.
Sharing it through his vlogs.
It's a reminder that self-improvement doesn't have to be a solo thing.
Right.
It's about connecting with others, learning from each other.
Supporting each other.
And that's where our deep dive takes a turn.
Oh.
The analysis reveals a big moment in his journey.
What's that?
He decides to share these vlogs with everyone.
Wow.
He's not just documenting his experiences anymore.
He's inviting others to join him.
To learn and grow alongside him.
That's a big step.
It is. He's stepping into a new realm of vulnerability.
And accountability.
He's creating a space for connection, for shared growth.
Turning his personal journey into something bigger.
It's bold.
It really is.
And it speaks to his desire to make a difference.
To inspire others.
It raises a fascinating question.
What's that?
What happens when self-improvement becomes a shared experience?
Ooh, that is interesting.
How does the dynamic change when others witness our struggles?
Our triumphs, our whole evolution.
Exactly.
That's a question we'll dig into in the final part of our deep dive.
We'll explore the impact of sharing publicly.
The challenges and rewards of using vulnerability to connect and grow. So last time, we were talking about how he decides to share his journey with, everyone.
The big step.
It is. It really got me thinking.
About what?
What happens when you take something so personal, like self-improvement, and you just open it up to the whole world?
It's like being on a stage, right?
Yeah.
With a spotlight on every part of your growth.
All your setbacks, the whole process.
It can be really intimidating.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there like that.
Knowing people might judge you, criticize you.
Even reject you.
But the analysis says there can be some big benefits too.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, one of the biggest is accountability.
Accountability, okay.
When we know other people are watching, we're more likely to stick to our goals.
It's like having a support system.
Exactly. A cheering section. that's invested in our success.
We're less likely to let ourselves down.
Right, because we don't want to let them down either.
But it's not just external accountability, is it?
You're right, there's an internal shift too.
What do you mean?
When we share our intentions publicly, it strengthens our commitment.
Oh, interesting.
It's like we're making a declaration to the world.
Saying, this is who I want to be, and I'm going for it.
Exactly. And that can be so empowering.
It takes us from wanting to change to actually becoming that person.
Okay, so accountability is one thing.
What else?
The analysis also talks about connection.
Oh, right.
When we share our experiences, it helps other people relate, feel less alone in their own struggles.
It breaks down that isolation.
Which is so important.
Yeah, self-improvement can feel really lonely sometimes.
It's like saying, hey, I'm not perfect either. I mess up. I have setbacks.
It gives other people permission to be human.
To embrace those imperfections.
Yeah, which can be so freeing.
Especially for people struggling with shame or self-judgment.
By being vulnerable ourselves, we give others space to do the same.
And that's where the magic happens.
What do you mean?
We see our own struggles reflected back at us and realize we're not alone in this.
We're creating a community.
A network of support.
People who get it, who understand.
And that sense of community. It's powerful.
It really is.
It can encourage us, inspire us.
Give us a sense of belonging.
Which can fuel our growth in amazing ways.
The analysis mentions he starts getting messages from viewers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sharing their stories, offering support.
That's beautiful.
It shows how vulnerability creates connection.
He opens himself up, shares his authentic self.
And it inspires others to do the same.
It's a ripple effect.
It's not just about him sharing his journey.
Right.
It's about the impact that has on others.
Inspiring them to be more open and connected.
He's creating a chain reaction of vulnerability.
Where one act of courage leads to another.
And that's how real change happens.
Not just for individuals, but for everyone.
His journey becomes something bigger.
It goes beyond him working on himself.
He's contributing to a movement.
Of self-awareness, of growth.
And that's a great message for our listeners.
What is it?
Your self-improvement, it's not just about you.
It impacts others.
It creates ripple.
You inspire people.
So, as we finish up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought.
Okay.
We've learned so much about his journey.
His struggles, his triumphs, his growth.
What's one small step you can take today?
To
make your own journey a little more public.
A little more connected.
A little more impactful.